The crushing weight of the incomplete man, the man-child trap, how the wisdom of the Fab Four frees the immature masculine. We're going to dive deep into the modern epidemic of the immature masculinity and the man-child phenomenon with the unparalleled intellectual dream team. Carl Jung, Niccolò Machiavelli, Buddha, and the Stoics, the Fab Four. They will break down the psychological, ethical, and societal roots of this crisis. We'll show you the exact moment a man stops growing, describe why modern culture encourages it, and the definitive path to true adult strength. Now, this isn't therapy. It's a field guide to becoming the man that you were meant to be. And this is a warning. The most direct and shocking advice comes from our Machiavelli. But the essential roundtable debate on practical action happens at the very end. And you absolutely don't want to miss that. The Fab Four agree, disagree, and ultimately wrap up this entire conversation and tie it in a bow. You'll see that at the very end. You don't want to miss it, so settle in. First, we'll look at the pain point. Is this you or someone that you love? The agony of the absent man. I want you to hold this image in your mind. A ship lost in a fog, and the captain downstairs playing a board game, oblivious to the fact that his vessel is now just floating around in the open ocean. That captain is the man-child, and that ship is a life, his own, his family's, or his partner's. What are we actually talking about? The man-child is an adult male, chronologically, who retains the emotional, relational, and vocational competence of an adolescent. He is the physical manifestation of immature masculinity, which is defined not by a lack of traditional manly traits, but by a failure of conscious responsibility. We'll look at 5 domains of life: emotional, financial, relational, vocational, and spiritual and moral. And we'll look at the different traits of a man, mature man, and the traits of a man-child. Emotional first. Emotional volatility and avoidance. He pouts. He shuts down. He uses passive aggression or explodes when confronted. He turns a discussion about the utility bill until a personal attack on his identity. The traits of a mature man. He accepts and possesses difficult emotions. He offers reasons response. Next domain, financial. Traits of the man-child. They are financial parasites and very irresponsible. He spends impulsively, relies on his parents, partner, or he prioritizes toys over needs. He will buy a new $500 gaming console when the car needs new tires. The mature man, he budgets, he invests, he handles his debt, and provides stability. Next, we'll look at relational. The traits of the man-child, they have commitment phobia, and they'll have transactional love. He dates without direction. He fears labels, and he only offers effort when he gets something immediate in return, like sex or comfort. He calls his girlfriend his roommate or his chill buddy after 3 years of being together. Now, the traits of a mature man: he commits, he communicates, plans for the future, and offers emotional security. Now, vocation. The man-child, he's job hopping or underemployed. He works only enough for luxuries. He sees work as a necessary evil to be hacked or quits when it gets difficult. His entire professional plan is a lottery ticket, a YouTube channel that hasn't posted a video in 6 months. A mature person, they pursue competence. They delay gratification, and they see work as a contribution. Next, spiritual or moral. The man-child, he has moral relativism, and he's blaming people. He always defaults to external validation, that is, what his friends do, and blames society, his ex, or his parents for his failures. And he cannot identify a single thing that he was sacrificed for. The mature person, he has a code. He confronts his own shadow and defines his own values. That last one, the inability to sacrifice, that's the dagger. The man-child is living a life in a default mode, and the unheard plea is the silent, internal agony of those around him, having to be the adult for the child. The Carl Jung archetype of perpetual adolescence. To understand how a man gets stuck, we must go to the deepest architect of the masculine psyche, Carl Jung. Jung's entire work is a roadmap for the transition from the boy ego to the self. The failure of the man-child is a failure of individuation, the lifelong psychological process of integrating conscious and unconscious elements to become a whole, unique individual. What the man-child is stuck in is the puer aeternus, the eternal boy archetype, or a deep identification with a specific part of his psyche known as the shadow. The crisis of the puer aeternus. The puer is the part of the psyche that values freedom, possibility, and boundless potential, rejecting any limits or commitments. In adolescence, this is necessary. In a man's 30s, it is lethal. The man-child, the puer, is characterized by fear of the container, fear of any structure, marriage, mortgage, a long-term job. He associates structure with the death of potential. The provisional life. He always feels like he hasn't really started his life yet. He has one foot out the door, waiting for the right job, the perfect woman, or the big break. This is the core of his paralysis. Next, the undifferentiated mother complex. Now this is heavy. The man-child often hasn't psychologically separated from the archetype of the mother. Not necessarily his biological mother, but the psychological principle of guaranteed comfort, unconditional love, and protection from life's harshness. He projects this expectation onto his partner, or the world itself. When the partner or world fails to perpetually nurture and protect him, he experiences outrage, which is an infantile rage against reality. The unintegrated shadow. Jung said the shadow is everything we reject about ourselves, our aggression, lust, laziness, and selfishness. The mature man integrates the shadow. He acknowledges that he is capable of great darkness, so he can consciously harness this power for good. The man-child, however, projects the shadow. He doesn't own his incompetence or resentment. He blames the boss, his parents, or the system. He sees his own lack of inner discipline reflected in others. He hates when his wife nags him, but he can't see the lack of follow-through that prompted the nagging. Yes, that's right. He started it. He started the nagging. Jung says that you must confront the shadow and acknowledge the puer, the willingness to enter the container, the commitment to transform potential into reality. Potential is nothing without resistance. Now this is deep work. If this is already hitting home, hit the like button. It's a small commitment, but try it. Next, Machiavelli and his brutal truth, the prince of irresponsibility. Now, we shift from the inner world to the outer consequences. Our next star, Niccolò Machiavelli, wouldn't mince words. He deals not in feelings, but in power, effect, and reputation. His wisdom is a shock to the system, but it's what the man-child needs to hear. The failure of virtue. Machiavelli's core concept for leadership is virtue. Not virtue in the modern sense, but strength, power, and effectiveness. The man-child has zero virtue in Machiavelli's eyes. He is utterly contemptible because he is useless to the state, the family, and himself. The Prince of Comfort, Machiavelli would view the man-child as a man utterly conquered by fortune. Fortuna, that's the unpredictable forces of life. And he's like that because he has built his life entirely around the comfort and avoidance. He has no defenses built against economic downturn, unexpected illness, or relational crisis. He is entirely at the mercy of luck. Reputation is everything. The man-child may be a nice guy, but Machiavelli cares about his reputation. What is the man-child's public reputation? Unreliable, sweet maybe, but weak. A liability. No one trusts a liability. No partner builds a fortune on a liability. No one promotes a liability. The cruelty of inaction. Machiavelli's philosophy is results-driven. He argues that the man-child's passive incompetence is a form of cruelty to those who depend on him. The failure to earn, the failure to protect, the failure to commit, this isn't just a personal quirk. It's a deliberate act of relational and financial sabotage. Machiavelli's solution. You must immediately adopt the mind of the prince in your own small domain, that being your apartment, your finances, and your relationships. Rule decisively. Conquer your comfort. Do the difficult thing now to avoid the greater difficulty later. Your perceived kindness is meaningless if your inaction causes suffering. You must act with virtue and demonstrate competence. Now we turn to Buddha. Buddha's diagnosis, the suffering of attachment to pleasure. After the brutal shock of Machiavelli, we need the cool, compassionate clarity of Buddha. While the man-child seems to be enjoying his pleasure-seeking, Buddha reveals it as the ultimate source of his suffering. The man-child is trapped in the first noble truth, dukkha. Suffering exists. But more importantly, he is trapped in the second noble truth, samudaya. The cause of suffering is craving and attachment. The craving for perpetual use. The man-child is pathologically attached to the transient state of youth. He craves the craving for karma, sensual pleasure, the endless pursuit of immediate gratification, video games, casual sex, junk food, social media loops. He uses these as a perpetual shield against the reality of aging, effort, and death. The craving for bhava, becoming. The man-child is stuck in the dream of becoming. He wants the idea of success, the thought of a great body, the fantasy of a perfect life without the actual process. His energy is spent on planning, talking, and dreaming, not doing. This is the puer's provisional life, viewed through a spiritual lens, a deep attachment to a non-existent future. The craving for vibhava, becoming, non-becoming, and annihilation. The man-child's emotional shutdowns and avoidance are a craving for non-existence, to escape the pressure of reality. When he retreats to the basement to game for 10 hours, he's annihilating his adult self to return to the simple, protected state of childhood. The illusion of the permanent self. The man-child believes in a stable, unchanging self that is entitled to constant happiness. Buddha's principle of anatta, which is non-self and impermanence, crushes this illusion. The true adult knows his identity is a process defined by his actions right now, not his past potential or his future plans. The man-child holds onto an identity of the cool guy, the genius, or the victim, even when reality proves otherwise. This attachment to a false self is the source of his misery and his inability to change. Buddha's solution. The path is the Eightfold Path, specifically right livelihood, that is, engaging in a work that is skillful and contributes, and right effort, that's cultivating wholesome states and relinquishing unwholesome ones. Stop seeking comfort. Start seeking cessation of craving. Practice meditation on the painful necessity of work and duty. The work is the escape. Is this talk dissolving some of your attachments? If so, hit the subscribe button. Next, the Stoic prescription, the discipline of the inner citadel. Finally, we turn to the most practical and immediately applicable wisdom of the building true adult masculine competence, the Stoics. They offer the blueprint for the inner citadel, the psychological fortress of an adult man. The man-child lives entirely in the realm of externals, things he cannot control: his reputation, his job security, his partner's move, the price of gasoline. He is constantly frustrated because he is trying to control the uncontrollable, the dichotomy of control. Epictetus would look at the man-child and diagnose him with the most basic failure of philosophy, confusing the controllables, which are your judgment, your impulses, your actions, and your effort, with the uncontrollables, which is everything else. The man-child's error, his anxiety over his messy apartment, his debt, and his future, stems from a misapplication of energy. He spends 2 hours complaining of an action that he controls instead of 30 minutes cleaning. That's an action that he does control. He spends all of his mental energy worrying about being fired. That's an external that he doesn't control, instead of spending an hour on his resume or learning a new skill. That's an action that he does control. The premeditation of evils. The man-child is defined by his optimism bias, the false belief that hardship won't happen to him. The Stoic, however, runs drills. He mentally rehearses losing his job, getting ill, being rejected. This preparation is the key to an adult's mental resilience. The man-child breaks, the Stoic bends. The exercise of duty. Marcus Aurelius spoke of our duty to the greater whole, the logos. Your duty is not a burden. It is the source of your dignity and self-respect. The man-child asks, what do I get out of this? The Stoic asks, what is the most rational and socially beneficial use of my time right now? The awe moment. True masculine awe is not found in the external size of your achievement, but in the internal perfection of your effort. The man who diligently cleans a single dish with a full focus is a greater man than the CEO who cheats on his taxes. The man-child misses this entirely. And the Stoic solution? Start today. Pick one small thing you have been procrastinating on and do it with 100% focused effort. That effort is your only true domain. The self-respect that follows is the antidote to the puer's insecurity. You are defined by the discipline you apply to the things you control. Drop a comment right now and share one small action that you are taking today to step away from immature masculinity. Next, the Fab Four round table, tying it in a bow. The diagnosis is now clear. Now we bring it together. The Fab Four are together to synthesize a solution to the man-child trap and achieve that micro-closure that we promised. Carl Jung speaks first, and he speaks to Niccolò Machiavelli. He says, Niccolò, your language is brutal, but I agree on the fundamental reality. The collective unconscious demands a masculine form that acts on the world. The puers clinging to potential is an ethical failure. His inability to act is simply an inability to face his own shadow, which he would find is not a monster, but merely a source of neglected power. Machiavelli answers, neglected power indeed. Carl Puer, the boy, is simply a prince who has abdicated his throne. The world does not care about his inner journey. It cares about the security he provides. His feeling of being overwhelmed is irrelevant. His inaction is a political failure, and politically, weakness is always punished. I call upon the man to recognize that his comfort is a greater enemy than any external tyrant. His weakness makes him dependable on others. A prince is never dependent. Next, the Buddha speaks. Dependency is the deep suffering that you both speak of. Niccolò, your tyrant is the self, clinging to the illusion of control through aggression. And Carl, your shadow is the manifestation of greed and hatred. But the root is the same, attachment. The man-child clings to comfort, that's karma, clings to the idea of himself as a victim, and clings to the belief that the past defines the present. I tell you, let go. The power to act, the virtue, is released the moment you seek craving the outcome. Right effort is action without attachment to the fruit of that action. Now the Stoics speak, and they say this, and that, Buddha, is the perfect bridge. The cessation of craving is precisely what we call the dichotomy of control. The man-child attempts to achieve happiness by controlling the world, his partner, his income, his reputation. This is madness. The true man achieves eudaimonia, that is human flourishing, by recognizing the only thing he is capable of controlling, his effort, his judgment, and his will. We would take Jung's desire for integration and make it a daily practice. Am I acting according to my nature as a rational and social being? Jung says, so the psychological work begins by acting. The man who takes a Machiavellian step of competence by paying a debt, by committing to a woman, by completing a project, is not merely behaving ethically, he is performing a sacred psychological rite. He is integrating the scattered fragments of his soul into the self. Machiavelli says, he is securing his state. The only way to silence the inner turmoil is to prove your strength to yourself through demonstrated competence. The end justifies the means, and in this case, the end is the creation of a strong, reliable man, and the means is a brutal, consistent, and uncomfortable action. Buddha responds, the means are the end. The path is the goal. The act of diligent effort is the virtue, regardless of the outcome. And the pain of doing the work, the craving for ease, is dissolved. The Stoics, the solution is the discipline of duty. When in doubt, ask, what is my duty here? Then perform it without complaint, without expectation, and with total effort. That is the only place your true dignity resides. There it is, the complete message from the Fab Four. They have dismantled the man-child and given you the blueprint for the complete man. The man-child is a man living by accident. The complete man is a man living by action. Your life is your ship. Are you going to keep playing games below the deck, or are you going to take the helm and navigate the crisis? The choice is yours. If this talk has given you even one new idea, please like this video right now to signal its value. And subscribe to join the community of men and women committed to this deep wisdom. And in the comments below, write a single word that represents your commitment to becoming the complete man. So until next time, stay strong, stay rational, and stay disciplined.